Bueno, pues ya estamos de regreso aquí en Los Hijos de la Malinche y bueno, estamos a las brasas con un súper programa, una súper entrevista. Está con nosotros vía telefónica desde MIT en Boston el profesor Noam Chomsky, quien es uno de los lingüistas que revolucionó el campo, justamente ese campo del conocimiento.
Y asimismo el profesor Chomsky es muy conocido por sus análisis sociales y por su crítica a la política exterior de los Estados Unidos.
Professor Chomsky, it's an honor to have you with us. Thank you so much for taking the call.
Very glad to be with you.
First of all, well, I'm going to first ask the questions in Spanish, Professor.
Yeah.
¿Usted ha considerado en sus estudios lingüísticos que somos incapaces de llegar a una teoría del comportamiento porque supera nuestro alcance cognoscitivo? ¿No podría ser más bien que no hay una verdadera teoría del comportamiento? Y traduzco. You have considered that we are unable to reach a true theory of behavior because it is beyond our cognitive reach. Could it not be possible that we are unable to reach it because there is no true theory of behavior?
Well, behavior is not random. We're constrained by our biological nature and our cognitive nature in the kinds of behavior that we can carry out. And there is a lot about behavior that can be studied about which very serious scientific theories have been developed. But there are some things that do appear to be beyond the reach of our capacity to study, either because it's just beyond our cognitive capacity or because we don't know enough. The most striking part, which is not original, it's not new, is in fact illustrated by our use of language. Descartes, back in the 17th century, if you look back to his argument that the human mind is distinct from the rest of nature, his main example was the use of language. Our normal, ordinary use of language, what you and I are now doing, has a certain creative capacity. We can produce new expressions which have never been produced, maybe never in the history of the language. We do it almost reflexively. Those who we speak to can understand them, though they've never heard them before. They are appropriate to the situations, but they are not caused by circumstances. So there's nothing in the conditions that affect the external conditions that affect me that determines what I'm going to say next. And as far as we know, they're not determined by my internal nature either. We have a capacity to choose, and to choose not randomly, but creatively, that is appropriate to circumstances. So we have this capacity to produce an unlimited number of expressions appropriate to circumstances but not caused by them, related to our internal state but not caused by it, arousing thoughts in others that they recognize they could have expressed themselves. This is a collection of capacities which lies beyond the bounds of any mechanism that we know about. There may be similar things in animals. Descartes thought there weren't, but there probably are. But whatever it is, resists investigation. So, for example, if you study an insect, let's say a much simpler animal, you can explain a lot about what it does. You study, say, a cockroach. You can explain why, if you cut off one of its legs, it adjusts so that it still walks. But what you can't study is why a cockroach decides to turn left instead of to turn right. I mean, you can explain some things in terms of hormones and so on, but a lot of the choices are just not even investigated because you don't know how to approach them. And in the case of humans, that's, core of human existence. So those things look like mysteries. and we don't know whether they mysteries means mysteries for humans. Maybe some differently organized intelligence could study them. It wouldn't be a surprise if it turns out to be beyond our capacity to investigate. In fact, it was recognized hundreds of years ago that many parts of nature are just mysteries that we cannot comprehend. David Hume, for example, great philosopher, British empiricist philosopher, when he was writing about Newton, a kind of a eulogy to Newton, said that Newton's greatest discovery is that there are mysteries which are beyond our capacity to understand. As he put it, Newton lifted the veil from some of the mysteries of nature, but by undermining what was called the mechanical philosophy, the mechanical view of nature, by undermining that, he showed that the ultimate secrets of nature remain in that obscurity where they always have been and in fact always will remain to us. And he had reasons for drawing that conclusion. Newton basically agreed, and the reasons carry over until today.
Profesor, es interesante que ha mencionado esto de Descartes y la importancia de la creatividad en el proceso humano del lenguaje. Me interesa saber, dado a que el estudio de la memoria ha sido excluido o ignorado desde el Renacimiento, el rol del lenguaje en los complejos sistemas el rol de la memoria en los complejos sistemas del lenguaje. Estoy pensando en los sistemas de Giordano Bruno, que creía que la memoria era una manera de obtener conocimiento y no solamente un medio. It is interesting that you have mentioned Descartes and the creativity and its importance in human process of language. But I'm interested in knowing, since the study of memory as something deeper than just remembering has been completely forgotten ever since the Renaissance, what role does memory have in language? I'm thinking of Giordano Bruno's complex systems of memory that he believed were a means of knowledge in themselves and not only a medium.
Well, there is extensive study of memory in modern psychology, and quite a lot has been learned. We have different kinds of memory. So short-term memory, the ability to remember things presented to us immediately, is a very different capacity from long-term memory. And each of them is structured in particular ways. And our relation to other organisms is interesting in these regards. So, for example, short-term memory across many species, all mammals and birds, many other species, seems to involve a number which is sometimes called the magic number 7. Most of memory across many species, short-term memory, is limited to about the number 7. So if somebody reads 7 digits off to you, you can repeat them. If they read 10 digits off, it becomes very hard to repeat. And other organisms are approximately the same. Well, somewhere between maybe 5 and 9, that's where short-term memory lies across species altogether. And that has all kinds of effects on our life and behavior and thinking and so on, even on the way we use language. On the other hand, long-term memory differs tremendously among organisms. I mean, humans have a fairly good long-term memory, but there are birds that far surpass us. I mean, there are certain birds that can remember where they've buried maybe 10 or 15,000 seeds. And furthermore, they remember the seeds by their quality. So if it's a seed that is going to decay sooner, they know they have to go to that one sooner than others. Feats like that are completely beyond human memory, totally. We don't even come close. So memory does, and if you look more closely, there are all sorts of interesting structures to memory. They're not going to get to the issues that Giordano Bruno raised. Those still remain very obscure, and it's not even clear that they can be clarified enough to